I'm just lighting some smudge for us. And then if you have medicines there that you want to light to connect with the plants, I'm going to light some bear root as well. And then just to light this bear root for us to ground, just come into the space with our hearts, smelling these beautiful plant medicines, knowing how much Mama Bear, who is the protector energy, the protector guide, is just with us, holding us, loving us. Just to let ourselves be open to the possibility of being loved. Let ourselves open to the possibility of being held. We're held in at least a safe enough space. Safe enough for just to relax a little bit, land a little bit. Take a few deeper breaths if we can. Just welcoming everyone to join us in this amazing process. Amazing to even contemplate relaxation and grounding as something that could be possible in our lives and in our work together. Putting the intention forward that we'll love to try out and try on multiple kinds of relaxation and grounding over the next number of weeks and months that we're going to gather. Then carry those gifts that we receive, the knowledge that we receive about our bodies and about our trauma and how to recognize that within ourselves and how to connect with that instead of pushing it away. Like, how do we just notice it, accept, and not be so much that we want to just shut it down right away, push it away. But how can we just relax a little bit into it? I find trauma and stress is like a teenager. The more I want to push on it, the more it wants to push back on me. So how can I embrace my teenager? How can I go, yes, okay, I know you're cranky. I know it's hard to accept you when you're like this. Yeah, how can I accept me when I'm like that? So I'm just delighted and thrilled and honored to open this space this evening as our launching initiation, our intentions, and to welcome my dear friend Lynn Fraser to take us on a little journey together. And then once Lynn has got maybe 20 or so minutes in, we're going to come back into the space and just have an opportunity to have a response if you want. Bring in a question or bring in an inspiration, or what would you welcome in this space? What would your intention be? What would be something that would be like, yes, I really want to show up for that. Yes, I want to tell Fiery and Lynn this, that, or something else so that they can be more in tune with designing a space and bringing forward the multiple kinds of possible opportunities to play together in this way. The play of relaxation and grounding. So Lynn, can you maybe do you want to step in, and what would you like to do?
Thank you, Fiery. I feel relaxed already. So one of the things that I'd like to do is start with some nervous system regulating practices. My personal history with this is that I've been meditating for 30 years and teaching meditation for 25. And I used to do a more formal kind of a meditation, more silence, more of that. And I realized over the years that what the real obstacle is for most of us is we have a hyperactive or a hypoactive nervous system. We have a lot of alarm in our nervous system, hypervigilance, which leads to a lot of compulsive thinking, a lot of catastrophic thoughts in the mind. We have a body that's tight or edgy. So the last several years, I've really been working more with a trauma-informed approach. And when we look at trauma, intergenerational trauma, as well as very much connected with the trauma of our own childhoods as well, what we find is that there's a lot of experiences that our body has had. And we've talked about this in this group too, that When I've asked for help, I've been yelled at, or all of those different experiences that we've had that our nervous system then remembers. So we have this nervous system that always expects the worst. It has a negativity bias, and it's always trying to keep us safe. So it's not an enemy, but it often doesn't serve us that well. I'm wanting to do a few things that will be helpful in terms of understanding our nervous system a little bit more, and some practices that will really help us to regulate right now in the practice, as well as we can take those out. And some of you I'm familiar with from the 9 a.m. practices, and some of you are not as familiar with those. Let's just start with using our senses. So we look around, and one of the things that happens when we look around is that we're letting our brain know that we're here in a specific location and in a specific time. We could also do other practices with the senses that we'll maybe get into a little bit more in a few minutes. But just as looking around, one of the things that happens is we could look and see, is there anything dangerous in the moment? Am I in a location that feels fairly secure? And probably the answer to that is always a yes if we're here doing a practice. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. To look around and notice what's here. We could look behind us as well. Sometimes that helps just to notice there's nothing behind me that's a threat. Part of what we do then is we notice as well our physical body. Right now, if you were to tune into your physical body and notice, are you kind of relaxed back into the support of your chair or however you're situated? If you're beating, are your shoulders relaxed? Right? We can just check in and see where we're at. That gives us a lot of information. We have long standing habits in the nervous system and in our body. So we might also notice that we carry our tension in a certain place. For me, it's usually the upper back, bracing ourselves against trouble. So we might have a tightness in the upper back and the large muscles of the upper back. Sometimes people will carry a lot of tension in the jaw. So you could kind of roll your jaw around a bit, loosen up through the hinges of the jaw. Lots of people frown. So there's that kind of a scowl or frown on the face. So it can help to really soften through the forehead. As you're checking in, notice if there's anything that seems pretty familiar, like how you're seated. I know for myself, I've been doing this for a long time, and I still, when I'm online like this, I'm still noticing often there's a little bit of tension in the shoulders. And so I could release that down, and then it comes back in, and then I can release it. So it's just a testament to how determined our nervous systems are to take care of us and to make sure that we're not going to miss any danger that might be here. We're going to do a little bit of movement if we want. You can move your arms around a little or move your shoulders, move your jaw. You could bring your arms up as you breathe in and out as you breathe out, or whatever would help you to kind of notice that you're in a body. One of the effects of trauma is that we disconnect from our bodies and from the present moment. So, a lot of the practices that we do are meant to bring ourselves back in. One way to do that with the noticing the breath is you could bring your shoulders up on the inhale and then release on the exhale to just see what does that feel like, just that little bit of a movement. If that feels okay, then you could continue that, or you could move your shoulders forward and back. Also notice, are you kind of settled in? Are you on the edge of your chair? Are you kind of sitting back on your chair? One thing that will often happen is that we have this buzz or an agitation in our body, and that's often caused by a hypervigilant nervous system. We're not so sure it's okay to settle back and just take a break. Our mind is maybe quite active, but also our body feels that. Maybe we could all just, if you feel like getting up, just stand for a moment and do a little bit of shaking. The Qigong has this beautiful practice shaking the tree. And I like to really get my knees, my hips, and my shoulders going. And we'll just do this for a couple of minutes. And it's amazing the difference that just moving our body like that can make. You can bounce or jump if you have good knees. You can always bounce. Let your shoulders go up and down. Raise your arms. Just really shake out. Make some noise with your breath. One of the things that happens too with being really still to avoid being detected by somebody is that we'll often hold our breath. We won't move. We won't make any noise. If we're making noise and we're moving our body, then that's a signal to the nervous system that it's safe enough for us to do that. So that can be very helpful too. So the nervous system, nonverbal. So the sensations, the energies are the way it communicates, but also it really pays attention to if I'm breathing like this, it must be okay. You can do that for a while longer if you want to come back. Notice, how do you feel? So one thing that kind of vigorous movement does is it gets us back into our body. And there's really good reasons why we've left awareness of our body behind. The trauma is stored in the body. We might have sensations or energy that are uncomfortable. So just to shake things up like that can be helpful, but it can also bring us back into our body in a way that might feel a little bit uncomfortable as well. So as you're doing any of these practices, really keep an eye on, is this feeling okay to me? If it's not, then back it up a bit. You can move forward into it if it really feels good. But let's work a little bit with the breath. Notice your breath now. We've all had a little flush of oxygen coming in. So notice as you're breathing, without really changing anything about the breath, are you holding your breath at all? Sometimes we'll have a habit at the end of the exhalation. It's like, I can't even think about bringing anything new in, even my breath. I feel so overwhelmed. But sometimes we're just full up and we have a habit of holding our breath at the end of the exhale. And sometimes when we breathe in, it's like we can't really afford to let that go. So we kind of hang on. With people with anxiety, we'll often have a breath holding at the end of the inhale. As we're paying attention to the breath, you could notice your breath in your nostrils, or you could notice it in your stomach area. But if it feels a little bit more comfortable to notice it in the nostrils, just stay up in the head area in the nostrils. So right now we're just working with the continuity of the breath. And the breath is kind of like that teenager. It doesn't really like to be watched necessarily. So when we bring our attention to the breath, oftentimes we'll start breathing more continuously. We'll stop holding our breath. And then maybe 10 minutes from now, if you check in again, you might be finding that you are holding your breath again. This is one of the most powerful practices. I've worked with many people who have had a lot of trauma and who have a consistent pattern of holding their breath. And over a period of time, just of being mindful, bringing your attention into your breath, letting your shoulders relax, letting your stomach soften, then the breath starts to become smoother. So we're not holding our breath. So if you were to think about a time when you felt really relaxed, maybe you were out in the forest or doing something that you really enjoyed, kind of bring that to mind and let yourself have a body memory of that as well. Most likely, your breath was continuous and smooth when you were really relaxed. So then, when we do a practice of continuous smooth breathing, then what we're signaling or what our nervous system associates with that kind of breathing is that it's safe enough and that we're relaxed enough to breathe in that way. Ideally, we're breathing diaphragmatically. We can get into the mechanics of that another time. But really, what that feels like is as you're breathing out, your stomach area is softening back towards the spine. And as you're breathing in, the muscles are a little softer and they expand a little, but that we're not pushing our stomach muscles. Our breath actually comes from the diaphragm muscle, which is attached to the lower rib cage. One of the reasons that people breathe in their chest or maybe reverse breathe is because of stress. And about 30% of kids, as they go into grade 1, are already breathing just in their chest. They're not diaphragmatically breathing. So that creates a lot of tension in the body. And it's something that we could understand about ourselves and our nervous system and have some compassion for ourselves that here we are, even at the age of when we're just starting to go to school, where there's been enough stress that we're holding our body tight and we've lost our natural diaphragmatic breathing. Notice as you're breathing if you can feel that in your stomach area. And if that feels like it's too much, then just focus on the nose or focus on your whole body. Sometimes I'd put a hand on my heart and another hand on my belly and just kind of notice what parts of my body are moving as I'm breathing. And our body really likes to release tension on the exhale, especially. That's one thing about our body is we carry so much tension in our bodies. And yet when we tune in and when we give our body what it needs, we actually don't want to carry around a lot of tension. We have a natural inclination to soften our body. So let's just go through some of the parts of the body, starting with the face. And notice if you've got some tension in your forehead that you could soften forehead, eyebrows, and eyes. See if you could let go of any worry, concern right now. Even when we have a lot going on, it's really lovely to have a little respite, give ourselves a break from that. You might notice the energy of thoughts in your mind. If you have a lot that you're thinking about or worried about, there's often a lot of activity there. Just for a moment to let your eyebrows soften. Notice again the sensations of air in your nose. It's a bit cooler on the inhale, a bit warmer on the exhale. Let your breath be smooth. Notice your mouth, your jaw, your tongue. Let your tongue relax. And notice your vocal cords as well, just in the front of your throat. Often, when we have a lot going on in our brain, we also have some subvocalizing. So, we're not really talking or whispering, but there's some movement in the vocal cords. But if you notice that you have any kind of movement in your vocal cords, it can be very helpful to let your tongue be still, your vocal cords be still, your throat. And then coming into your neck, your shoulders, notice the large muscles in the upper back. And what are you carrying on your shoulders right now that you could soften and release? You might bring your shoulders up and let them release, or just with your attention on your shoulders as you breathe out. See if you could let a wave of softening come along the sides of the neck, the top of the shoulders, down into the large muscles of the chest and the upper back, through the arms, down through the hands. And notice if your hands and arms have kind of an edgy energy or if it feels okay to let your arms and hands be at rest. And the same with your legs. You bring your attention into your hips, your thighs, those large muscles at the front and back of the thighs, the lower legs down through your feet, your toes, your heels. And if you have a restlessness in your legs, that could be from hypervigilance in your nervous system. You want to be ready to jump into action. We protect ourselves by running or fighting or kicking. So our legs carry a memory, but they also kind of have a duty. It's like I want to be ready to protect myself. So notice your arms and legs and see if you could let your energy settle a little bit. Remind yourself that it might be okay just for the next few minutes to let your body be completely supported by the chair, whatever it is that you're supported by. And taking a few deeper breaths. Shanti's reacting to the wind. It's often what our minds do as well. We just get that kind of something happens and we're like, what's that? So letting ourselves come back into noticing the muscles, noticing that you're supported, noticing your breath. And some days this feels so welcome, so nourishing. And other days it's like, "Oof, I'm just a little too wound up for that." We don't have to shame ourselves for having whatever is going on. We could just be noticing that. See if you could bring some kindness, some patience. Be patient with yourself, with your nervous system. And becoming friends with our nervous system is something that's really quite well known now. There's a lot of evidence around breathing and relaxing the muscles, around somatic mindfulness. And we probably already have, each of us have a few things that we do, whether that's that we walk in the forest or sit in the forest, we do yoga, or we do beading, or we get together with friends, or whatever that is. But our nervous systems have this history right from in utero and intergenerationally as well. So, one of the things that we're doing is to try to reduce the things that jack us up, that make us more anxious, and increase the supports that we have. So, if we come back to looking around again and come back to really noticing what it feels like to be in your body right now, just notice what happened over the last 15 minutes or so. Do you feel the same? Do you feel different? Did you have different experiences? For a while, it was great. Then it was like, oh, we just have such a fluidity in our experience. And a big part of healing our nervous system and building strength and resilience is to relax our body and work with our breath for sure, but also to develop a friendlier relationship with our body, with our nervous system. And to learn, okay, if I'm holding my breath, I'm signaling danger to my nervous system. If I start to breathe with that more continuity, with the diaphragmatic breath, I'm signaling safety to my nervous system. That's really important to know. There's so many deep reasons why. And like when we're looking around the room, we're not just looking to see, oh, I should do the dishes or something. We're also looking to see, I'm here in this moment in time. So our body wants to use all of our senses to locate ourselves. And when we touch in with our body, it's like, I really am on the edge of my seat and feeling kind of jittery. What would help? So maybe that shaking for a couple minutes was what felt really good. Maybe that's not what you want to do. We have a lot of opportunity to practice mindfulness of what would be helpful, but also our own agency. A lot of times we don't have that opportunity when we're growing up, especially, and as adults too. There's a lot of people bossing us around. And so, how could we really touch in with our own willingness to be on our own side and work with ourselves in this kind way?